Hello and welcome to Creative Marketing TV. My name is Susan Joy Schlief. I am the founder and host of Creative Marketing TV, and I'm really glad to have you join me today. Whether you are here live or watching the replay later, welcome. Let me get myself on camera here, and I rearranged all of my computer stuff, and it looks like I didn't get my chair right in the position to show up on screen here, but hi. I have a very exciting guest today that I have been really having fun getting to know the last couple of weeks. And I joined her Facebook group several weeks ago too, and getting to know her there. Jo Petzer is a graphic designer who lives in South Africa. And so she is joining us for an interview today. I'm going to talk about what she does with flat lay photography. And so we'll show some examples of different styles. And I have a little demo to show you of how I've been using her objects in PowerPoint. So Jo, go ahead and unmute yourself and say hello.
Hi. Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Oh, you know what? I just realized I don't have my questions open. I'll have to go look for that while I let you start introducing yourself. So actually, let's start with just talking about what is flat lay photography, and then we'll come back to telling a little bit more about you.
All right, no problem. So flat lay photography is, you've heard the saying, a picture paints 1,000 words, all right? So flat lay photography is that it's telling a story through images. You can include words, obviously, but it gives you at a glance, a story at a glance. So flat lay started in about 1987, and it was called knolling. I think you've spoken about this, Susan, in your intro video. It was first practiced by a janitor called Andrew Cromelo, and he worked for a furniture company. And when the workers left for the day, they would leave all their tools out, and he would lay all their tools out on a board, all nice and neatly at right angles to each other, so that they could find their tools again the next morning. And that was the first type of flat lay that became popular.
And they weren't necessarily taking pictures of them or anything, right? It was just something that he was doing to entertain the staff, was my understanding, right? Just for fun.
So that they could find their tools, I think. Because with a knolling flat lay, because of the way it's laid out so neatly and geometrically, it's easy to find things because you can see everything, compared to a flat lay that we'll talk about just now, which is more informal, where you also have quite a number of items, but they're at different angles to each other, so they don't look as tidy, but they still need to look presentable and have some sort of design structure.
Right. And I know you have some slides that you sent me with examples. Do you want me to show those now, or do you want to come back to them?
Well, I would like to talk about the 4 categories of flat lay.
Okay, go ahead.
And I've got images showing each of those categories. So the first category is knolling, which is the geometric items, the items placed in a geometric layout at right angles to each other. And that method is used best for displaying a large number of objects. So, and generally they all belong to the same theme. So if you see in the images, you can see the first one is sort of a field photographer that's his story in that flat lay. And then the second one is maybe a makeup artist, and that's all their tools. And the third one might be a night out. So you can use that layout to tell a story in a geometric way. Sometimes there is one item that is more prominent than the others, like you can see in the third example. There's 2 there. There's the shoe and the cushion. Those become the feature objects, and then the others are sort of positioned around that. Then the next style of flat lay is informal, which is very similar to this geometric layout, but as you can see, the items are all at different angles. And this is also used to tell a story and to bring the viewer into the graphic. So you can see in the third one, there's a person, you can see their legs. It's almost like you are that person, you become that person in the graphic, and you interact with that image. Great. So those are, then the third flat layout style is minimalist. So this is very simple. It's normally on a white background or a very plain colored background, and it will feature one, maybe two images only with one or two props. So this is ideal for showcasing a product or for using as a mock-up. So if you see the one that says Coffee Now on the iPad, that's an example of a mock-up, where you've got a cell phone or a tablet or a picture frame, and you put your own text into that.
Or your own artwork, right?
Your own artwork. It's ideal for designers or artists because they can showcase their art as if it was in that actual situation. Then the fourth category is, I call it creative. So it's still flat lay, but it doesn't tell the same sort of story as the others. It's normally very much more artistic, a little bit abstract, and it often combines two elements you wouldn't normally see together. So, for example, you can see the donut and the lotion cap. You wouldn't normally see those together. So this is used mostly by designers to showcase their ideas. Business owners could use it if they're trying to communicate a message. I saw one earlier. It had a McDonald's chip container with cigarettes inside it to look like the chips, but they weren't chips, fries.
Or French fries, as we would call
French
them.
Fries, yeah. French fries. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the word.
I know over on the other side of the Atlantic, you call them chips, right?
It was a McDonald's French fry container packet with cigarettes in it.
Yeah.
So it's used to communicate some sort of controversial message.
Yeah, or
those
very
are the
creative. Like I know I've seen a number of images online with putting flowers in the ice cream cone like that, you know, just to be
to be different. Right? And that's true. Yes. So, and then there are two primary ways of creating a flat lay. So the first one is using your camera, which can be a pain if you're not a photographer because you have to collect up all your props, lay them out, find a place where the lighting is good, know how to use the camera, know how to work with lighting, know how to edit your images afterwards. And then there's digital flat lays that we're going to focus on today. So digital flat lays is when all your objects are already created for you in a graphic format, like the PNGs and the packs that I make. And then the user will pull those images through into their own empty page in the program that they're using to create their own flat lays.
Okay. So that's kind of what I've been doing with them, right? Is bringing in someone else's objects, because I don't take the photos myself for them.
It's tedious.
Yeah, but it still lets you have the creative aspect of, you know, assembling them and arranging them in the way that
and it's much easier. It's much easier doing it digitally because, I mean, I've done camera layouts before, and you'll lay out all your things, all your objects, and take some pictures and then change the scene and then think, oh, I could have done another one with those same props like this. And you've got to take those all off, bring the other ones back. Whereas in a digital file, it's just a matter of moving the images around, deleting them, and bringing them back to you again if you need to.
So let me ask you, how did you get started doing this particular form of design? What drew you to it, and what kind of training have you had to do it?
It started more of necessity in my design work. So clients would come to me for product catalog design, and they would want their products photographed and put in the catalog. But often they weren't nearby for me to photograph their products. So they would email me their product images that they had taken themselves with their cell phone or their camera, not knowing anything about photography, and they would send me these images to use, and most of the time they were terrible. There'd be people in the background or poster up on the wall or something, and I couldn't use them in a design that would make me look good. So I would cut the object, the product out of the background and use that in the catalog. Or I would most times I would put it on a different background or add some props to it. So that's how it started. And then Canva came along, and made it easy for everyone to do design. And then I realized there was a need for these sort of graphics in the DIY design market. So by that time, I had a huge library of images that I had cut out and created as PNGs to use as props in my own design. So I started putting those into packs and selling those online. And now I'll think up a pack and I'll actually create one to sell specifically, not necessarily to use in my own designs, but for other people to use.
Okay, interesting. So part of what I'm curious about is, how do you get the background removed? Is that something you do in Photoshop?
Well, I don't use Photoshop. I have Photoshop, but I wasn't trained in Photoshop, so I don't really use it. I was trained in CorelDRAW, which it does the same. It does the same thing as Photoshop, InDesign, and what's the other program? Illustrator. It does the same thing as all of those, but in one program instead.
Okay.
So it just makes it easier. You're not jumping from one program to the next. So my work process involves taking the photographs firstly. So I'll collect up all the items I want to photograph, and I will photograph them. I use my phone to photograph them, which is, the quality is fine. And then I'll edit them. So cutting the background out in CorelDRAW, how we do it is we actually create a clipping path. So we draw a shape the same as the outline of that object, and we make sure it's slightly inside the edge of the object, and it follows exactly the outline of that object. And then we'll clip the object into that shape. So you only see the parts of the object that are in the shape. Anything that's behind it disappears.
Right.
And then I'll put a slight shadow around that so that it just gives it a bit more depth. And when someone's using it on a layout, it looks a bit more realistic. And then I'll export that as a PNG at maximum resolution, and then people can use it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I've seen people teach how to do that in Photoshop. I just don't have Photoshop. It feels too hard to me.
It's tedious. You have to have a very steady hand.
Yeah.
And I use my mouse. You can get apps that do the same thing, but it's like a magic wand, but it never gives you a nice clean edge. It's always a little bit, and you often miss out important parts. There's quite a few phone apps that you can use for that, but I've used some of them to see how they work, but they just don't give the same clean finish.
Right. There's nothing is going to be as good as doing it by hand yourself. I understand.
Unfortunately.
And for those of you that are watching that use PowerPoint for design work like I do, you can actually remove the background in PowerPoint as well. Two ways. There's an automated way, which often doesn't work very well. You know, your main object has to be really distinct from your background for that to work well. But you can also do that same kind of outlining that you're talking about. It's a little more tedious in PowerPoint, I think, than in Photoshop or Corel, but it can be done, and then you can save that out as a shape. Normally, when I do that, I leave a white space around it so that it looks more like it's cut out of paper by hand, just a different style. But I might try like what you're talking about, to cut out close.
I must try it in PowerPoint. It'll actually be interesting. Interesting experiment. I'd like to try it just to see what the difference is.
Yeah, well, the other difference I think is that when you export the object as a PNG, you can make it a transparent PNG. I don't know how much control you have over the resolution, though.
Okay, so yeah. I think PowerPoint its output is 72 dpi or maybe 96 dpi.
I think it's 96 now. It's based on the monitor, really.
Yeah, it's not a print program. Okay.
And I actually have a third-party tool that I use that lets me export as a higher resolution, but you can only export the whole slide, not an individual piece of it. Okay. So it wouldn't work for this. But yeah. All right. So let's see. Oh, you had a couple more slides on there that you wanted to show, right? Let me bring those back up. We saw the different styles, but let's see. Oh, yeah, you were talking a little bit about the digital. go ahead.
All the previous examples that you've shown in the slides were photographic flat lay, so they were all taken with camera.
Okay.
Whereas these ones are created digitally. I'll put this in here so you can see the difference, that you can create a sometimes a digital flat lay looks more real than a photograph flat lay. The colors can be brighter.
This looks, I would not have. Oh, so you're saying the difference is with the others, the whole scene was shot with a camera.
Yes.
Whereas these are made with separate
yes.
objects, like you were talking about, and then dragged in on a some kind of digital canvas, whether you're using PowerPoint or Canva or Corel or whatever, right? Okay, that makes sense. And so this is the way that I've been doing mine.
Yeah.
Because
just to show you how far you can go with it. I'm using, because I'm teaching my clients in Canva, I'm limited in the lessons I give them to what can be done in Canva. So if using a program like CorelDRAW, you can have indefinite number of layers. So you can really create an intricate design, whereas you can't do that much detail in Canva with this sort of design. I'm not sure with PowerPoint how many layers and how deep you can go with your layers in PowerPoint. That will be interesting to look at.
I don't think there's really any limit. It's more just a matter of knowing how the layering works in PowerPoint. It's a little bit different than in other programs, but I've never run into any limit on that. You know, I just realized, Jo, when you're talking, the Hangout is putting you in instead of the images. So in case people miss these, let me just go back quickly and show these others, if you don't mind. And
no problem.
When I'm talking, they stay up because it's showing that instead of my picture. But when you talk, then it switches. So this is the knolling that she was talking about, the original version of flat lays where everything's in nice, neat rows. Much too formal for me. And this is the more informal style, which is more what I've been doing, although mine are usually not quite that full. That seems a little busy for my personal taste, but it definitely, they have an impact, that's for sure. And then these are the minimalist ones that Jo was talking about, where it's only a few objects. And that one, to me, is like a little bit more minimalistic than my style. I think I tend to fall somewhere in between. And then these are the creative ones that she mentioned, just fun ways of juxtaposing objects that normally don't go together. And then the digital flat lays that we were just talking about, where you're taking objects that have been saved as individual PNGs and then assembling them together in some kind of graphic design software. And then here she has some examples of ways to use flat lays for business purposes. So I'll let you take a second to look at those, and then we'll let Jo go ahead and explain about those, knowing that the picture's going to go away. I must not have set something up on that, but can't fix it right now. So
I think there's a second page for that one as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. And those, yeah, I liked some of these. These are nice.
Okay, so
posters and
those illustrate different ways you can use flat lays in your business. So I'm just going to go through a list of different ways you can use them, though really it's not limited to this list. If you think of other ways you can use flat lays, you can go mad. So you can use them to tell a brand story, which would include graphics relevant to your business and in your brand colors. You could use them to create website banners or banners for your blog around your title. You can use them to frame quotation. So if you've got an inspirational quotation, for example, I've got a client who's a florist, and we've created a set of inspirational quotations about flowers and growing and life and that sort of thing in general. And we've created a set of quotation images with flowers and plants around the border. And I've used her flowers in the photograph. So I've taken flat lays of her actual flowers and we've used them in her graphic. So it's all hers. It's unique. No one else is going to have those same images.
That sounds lovely. And then it's all in a similar style, so people recognize her brand. Very creative.
And we use that in her social media, in her Instagram, in her Facebook. If she's running a competition, we'll use the same sort of look and feel for that. Another great way to use flat lays is, like you saw in the one sample, for recipes and laying out all the ingredients you're going to use in a recipe, and you can label them. So I've seen 1 or 2 recipe books actually put together like that, and it really makes it easy to see exactly what's going into whatever you're making.
Oh, yes.
And a lot of people use it. It can be used. That sort of mixes the knolling method, but you're using words and text next to each object to explain what it is. You can use that for any business that is product related, that sells a physical product. So if you sell stationery, you could have your stationery items laid out in a flat lay with a little bit of text next to each one with a price explaining what that product is.
You know, I had forgotten until you mentioned that I saw, excuse me, I saw a book at Whole Foods recently that had different recipes for making aromatherapy blends, and it talked about the effects of different essential oils, and they had some really lovely, simple but flat lay images of the different parts of the plants, and then examples of how you might use it in food or in essential oil blends. But it was, you know, each plant had its own little flat lay inside the book. So it was very nice.
No, it works very well. But most people don't think to even use that in their design, but it's really a great way to showcase your products or to put your message across there about what you're selling. Then another way to use the flat lays is even in flyers and invitations. So if your company has a product, you can actually use it in your company flyer or brochure around the edge, across the top as a border. It gives the viewer an immediate picture of what you're selling and what your business is about. And then like you've used them, you can use the images and flat lay designs in your videos so that you can make them move. You can bring them into the videos like you've done in your demo videos. So there's quite a number of ways you can use the graphics. And the biggest challenge I find clients having with thinking up ways to use these is what to use them for. So Pinterest has a never-ending supply of ideas. So if you want to start using flat lay in your business, and you're not sure how you can use it, pop into Pinterest, put flat lay and whatever images you're looking for, flat lay pets, flat lay toys, and you will see loads of ideas that you can reuse, that you can use for inspiration in your own business to create your own flat lays. Pinterest or even Google or Instagram, they're full of ideas and full of great flat lay examples.
And I know when I've been looking for images, ones that are already finished to use, you know, without creating my own, sometimes I find them under the term desktop scene or something like that, or
scene creator.
Scene creator.
Scene creator.
Yeah.
There are quite a lot of other people who are or designers also creating these packs, but most of them are created in Photoshop. So you have to actually have Photoshop and you have to know how to use it and know how the layers work and the dynamic objects work to actually use them. So you'll buy the images and you get the Photoshop file. Sometimes they supply all the PNGs separately, sometimes they don't. So whereas my packs are PNGs only, so you can use them in any program.
Yeah, that's why I was so excited to find yours, because I don't use Photoshop. I'm always looking for, I had found a couple of other designers who usually provide the PNGs in addition to Photoshop. But yeah, so I'm always looking for more of those. I think you have one more slide here that we didn't show yet. So some more examples of how
there we
people
go.
could use these in their Instagram or just for different social media, or possibly, you know, even a magazine ad or something like that, depending on what you're doing. So I don't know if I'm going to show my whole video, but I think what I'll do next, because we're going to run out of time otherwise, I created a little video demo of how I add these to PowerPoint. So let me show at least part of that, and then we'll see what you want to add after that.
Cool.
And then I need to stretch this out here. So I started with several of the slides already done, and then I left one blank to show. And then here's just how they would look in slideshow mode, even though they're not going to be used as slides. That helps to see them that way. So then I'm going to take that blank one and add some objects. And I just rearranged my windows so that I could drag the images over. It goes faster that way than having to use the insert menu. So I sped this up a little bit just so that it wouldn't be quite such a long video. But I started with one of her papers in the background there, and then I'm going to put her frame on top of that and get it turned and lined up. And then I also grouped those two together so that I could move them. And I'm not going to take the time to explain how to do that right now, but that will allow you to move them together and keep them in alignment. And then I just started dragging some other objects over onto the slide screen. Put in a text box first. And then I just change the font style and font size and color and things like that. I guess I could have sped this up a little bit more even. And while this is going, I'll just mention too, you know, Jo was talking about people not knowing what to do with these and how to use them. And she and I were talking the other day about putting together a training, a paid training about this, where she could show how to use them in Canva and I can show how to use them in PowerPoint. And we'll provide some of her graphics and some of my templates that you could use in PowerPoint. So you can watch for announcements about that, whether you're on her list or mine. We'll let you know. I'm not sure when we're going to do that, but I think it will be a pretty fun idea. Okay, then I dragged these markers over and resized them here. And of course, I wanted to make sure they all stayed about the same size as I resized them. Now, let me see if I can fast forward past some of this. Actually, I don't think I can while it's broadcasting. Yeah, this is combining images from both of your packs, Jo, that I had. The one that you're going to give away today, and then the one that I had gotten earlier from your opt-in page. Has some fun things in it too. And I know Jo has a special offer for you today too. She has a free bundle of images for you. And then if you are interested in signing up for her email list, you'd get some more goodies besides. So I think I'll stop this rather than carry through because it's 10:30 already. And I want to give you a few minutes to wrap things up here and explain any other last minute things that you didn't get a chance to say. So.
Gee.
Or if you want to tell them about what's in the free offer, that's fine too.
Well, I've tried to keep the free offer neutral, so the images there aren't any bright colors. They're just sort of whites and neutral colors. So you could use them in any business and then add other images or colors as highlights. One thing that I would like to mention is that besides the packs that I create, I also create custom packs for clients. So if a client comes to me, maybe they're a hairdresser and they sell a specific product, I will photograph that product for them and their own hairdressing items from their salon. So their hairdryer, their combs, and I'll turn that into a custom pack so they can actually use that in their business, and it's all their own items. So it's not an image that they've got somewhere off a free stock site or somewhere else. They're actually their own objects that they can use. And that's nice. Becoming fairly popular, which is quite nice.
But you only do that for local clients, I'm assuming.
No,
right?
I've done for overseas clients. What I do is if clients abroad would like to have that done, I'll send them instructions on how to take their photos, and I'll get them to send me the images, and then I will edit the images and crop them out for them nicely. So they do half the work,
yeah,
and I do half the work.
That's a great idea.
So, and they're learning how to take photographs at the same time.
Take better photos with their phone. Yeah, that's a great idea, Jo. So people can contact you if they're interested in getting their own flat lay images of their, especially for people that have physical products or that provide a service where they have tools that they use for it. Yeah, that's great. All right. And so you have your free bundle that you're giving people today. Oh, well, it'll be in the notes under the video, the link that you can click on, and I'll show it on screen here as well. Actually, I might as well bring that up now. Okay, so the first line there is the flat lay giveaway. And then the second line underneath is if you would like to get some additional free images every month, you can sign up for Jo's email list. And that's the second line at the bottom there to do that. And when we finish, once the recording is up on YouTube, I'll ask Jo to come over and leave a comment with that information in the comments, and then you can just click on that link instead of having to type it all out. Anything else you want to add about those, Jo?
Oh, no, I think that's everything. I think that explains it in a nutshell. I mean, you could probably write a book on flat lay. So I think that's the basics that you need to know if you want to start using flat lays.
It has become a very popular style, definitely.
It's growing.
Right. And let me bring up your contact information here too, if anybody wants to get in touch with Jo. There's her email address, her website, and Facebook and Instagram. I have not become much of an Instagram user yet, but I know I really need to be doing it. So I'll follow you. And
it's very different from Facebook.
It is. And I just haven't taken the time to get in there and find out what people are really doing with it. So. All right. Well, I have certainly enjoyed this and learned a lot, Jo. And
good.
That's great. Wonder if you want to just wrap up here by maybe sharing one or two tips that you can recommend for people about their graphic design work.
Oh, well, if you're not a designer and you want to start doing your own graphics for your business, I do have a few tips. The first one is just to learn about the basic rules of design, how to use fonts together, composition, layout, color. It's very difficult to create a really good design if you don't know the basics. So there's plenty of free videos on YouTube. You might even have made a few, Susan, on the basics of the design, just the very, very basics, so that when you're creating something, you've got some sort of guideline to follow. Another tip I can give you is choose a program that you're going to use for your design and stick to that program. Learn that program as well as you can, rather than jumping around and trying a whole lot of different programs that are just going to confuse you. choose one program that does what you need to do and just focus on learning that program as best you can, as much as you can about that program. And the third tip is to practice, and imitate. So find designs that you like the look of and reproduce them in whatever program you're using, just to get practice on how design works, what good design looks like compared to what bad design looks like. Because I always tell my clients that bad design can do your business more harm than no design at all.
That's definitely true.
Yeah,
Definitely
I've seen it. And then one last tip, I've got another one for you, is to plan your design. So anything you're going to design, make sure that it has a purpose. So this design is, it needs to bring more people onto my mailing list, or this design is to tell someone about this product, and only communicate one message in your design. Otherwise people get confused. Or one call to action in any design. Don't try and put too many messages in one design, because people won't get the message. They'll be confused. So keep it simple.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And I'll just put in a plug here for a couple places where you can learn more. If you're interested in using PowerPoint to do your designs, then I would recommend that you check out my Facebook page, PowerPoint Queen Rules. And I also have a link there to my Facebook group, which is Social Videos Made Easy. And we focus more there just on video creation, although there's definitely design involved in that as well. And Jo also has a Facebook group called DIY Designers, which I joined about a month ago, and I've been very impressed. She shares a lot of good information there. She gives little tips and trainings and things, and as well as an opportunity to get feedback. I think you do that on Fridays, right? To ask people to share something they've created that they want feedback on. So in addition to the tips that she was just sharing, that's another thing I would add is, especially when you're learning and practicing, get some feedback from people about what you could improve on it, or what works and what doesn't. And Jo's group is a great place to do that. So
thanks.
Well, thank you so much, Jo. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope that our audience will enjoy it as well. If you have any questions for Jo, please be sure to leave them in the comments underneath the recording from this video, and she will respond at, not necessarily immediately, but we'll keep an eye on that. And I will.
And I might share them in my Facebook group, if you like, for everyone else.
Or share them in the Facebook group. Yeah, that's another good place to do that. So, all right. Well, we will go ahead and wrap things up for today. My name is Susan Joy Schlief. My guest today was Jo Petzer from the DIY Designers group in Facebook and Make a Scene photo bundles. I've certainly enjoyed the show. I hope you do as well. And I look forward to seeing you on a future episode.
Thanks.